Okay, let's put you in the CEO's chair for a minute. You're facing two impossible choices. One decision could mean hundreds of your employees lose their jobs. The other, it involves secretly monitoring your entire staff. Now, these aren't just business problems, right? They're moral mazes. So how on earth do you find your way through?
So let's dive right into our first case. We're looking at a company called Robo Manufacture. Right now, they've got 1,200 people working on their assembly line. And that's not just a number on a spreadsheet. We're talking 1,200 families, 1,200 lives.
But here's the catch. To stay competitive in a really tough market, the company's got a plan: full automation. It's a marvel of modern efficiency for sure, but it comes at an absolutely staggering human cost. Out of those 1,200 jobs, 850 are about to vanish.
Now, if you're looking at this from a pure business angle, the numbers are pretty hard to argue with. I mean, slashing your labor costs by 55%, that's a huge win. But this is exactly where it gets so complicated. How do you weigh a percentage point against a person's entire livelihood? What's the right thing to do here?
To help us figure this out, we're going to grab two classic ethical frameworks to be our guides. First, we'll look at this whole automation mess through the lens of utilitarianism, which is all about the final outcome. Then, we're going to tackle a tricky surveillance issue using Kant's philosophy, which focuses on rules and duties. All right, let's get into it.
First up, the automation dilemma at Robo Manufacture. So is this a story about progress, or is it really just about pain?
The conflict here is just so stark. On one side, you have 850 workers, many of them women with limited options, staring down unemployment. On the other side, the company's promising a safer workplace, some new high-skilled jobs, and cheaper gadgets for literally millions of people. They are offering a retraining fund to soften the blow, but you have to ask, is that really enough?
To make a call like this, we need some kind of tool, right? A way to analyze it. So let's bring in our first one, utilitarianism. This whole framework is really about one thing: weighing the consequences.
Basically, utilitarianism asks us to pull out a giant moral scale. We pile all the good stuff, all the happiness and pleasure, on one side. And on the other side, we pile up all the bad stuff, the pain and suffering. Whichever side ends up being heavier, well, that's your ethical choice. It is all about the final score.
And here it is, the heart of the utilitarian dilemma. On one side of our scale, you have this incredibly severe, personal, and long-lasting suffering for 850 people. On the other side, you've got smaller benefits, but they're spread out across millions. Cheaper phones for us, better job security for the few who remain, a stronger company. So how in the world do you weigh intense, concentrated pain against widespread, but much less intense gain?
And this is exactly why a utilitarian wouldn't just give a simple thumbs up. For them, the morality of this whole thing depends entirely on that mitigation plan. You know, if the severance and the retraining are actually good enough to help those 850 workers get back on their feet, then yeah, the overall happiness probably wins. But if not, then the intense suffering of a few could absolutely outweigh the small benefits for the many.
Okay, let's switch gears and move to our second case. We're going from the factory floor to the office computer, and we're shifting from job security to something way more personal: privacy. I want you to meet TrackWise Solutions, a company that sells employee monitoring software.
This is their actual marketing pitch for their big product, StealthWatch Pro. And that phrase, 100% undetectable, that says everything, doesn't it? They're literally selling secrecy as a feature.
So we're not just talking about tracking which work apps you're using. No. This thing logs every key you press. It takes pictures with your webcam, it listens through your microphone, and the employee never even knows it's happening. The company says, hey, it's our computer. We have the right. But let's put the legal stuff aside for a second. How would that make you feel?
So, to analyze this one, that happiness calculator we were just using, it's not the right tool. We need a totally different approach. Enter the Kantian rulebook, which is based on the ideas of the philosopher Immanuel Kant. For Kant, it's not about the consequences, it's all about our duties and the rules.
See, Kantian ethics asks a fundamentally different question. It says, forget the results for a second. Is the action itself right or wrong? Are there some things we should just never, ever do, period? And Kant gives us two really powerful tests to help us figure that out.
Okay, let's run their business model through Kant's first test. The basic rule, or maxim, is something like, I will secretly monitor people without their consent for my own benefit. Now imagine a world where that's a universal law. Everybody does it. Companies, governments, your neighbors. In that world,
trust just evaporates. Society itself starts to crumble. The rule actually destroys the very conditions you need for a functional society. It fails the test spectacularly.
Kant's second big rule is all about dignity. He said we should always treat people as ends in themselves, as thinking, feeling people worthy of respect, and never just as a means to an end or a tool to get what we want. Secretly monitoring your employees is using them as instruments to make a profit, and it completely ignores their dignity and their right to say no.
So, from a Kantian perspective, this isn't even a tough call. It's a slam dunk. The action of secret surveillance is fundamentally wrong. Why? Because it's built on lying, and it violates our basic duty to treat other people with respect. It doesn't matter if it helps the company make more money. The act itself is just plain unethical.
All right, so we've worked our way through two really tough problems, using two very different moral compasses. One was focused on the outcomes, the other was all about our duties. Let's just put them side by side and really see the core differences.
And this is really the key difference. Utilitarianism is like a flexible balance scale, always focused on the results. It's adaptable, but it runs the risk of justifying some pretty nasty actions if the result is good enough. On the other hand, Kantianism is a rigid rulebook focused on principles. It's great for protecting individual rights, but it can be super inflexible when maybe, just maybe, breaking a small rule could lead to a much better outcome for everyone.
So at the end of the day, there isn't one simple answer to what's the ethical thing to do. These frameworks don't just hand us the solution. What they do is give us better questions to ask. They're tools to help us think more clearly. So the next time you face a tough call, which moral compass are you going to reach for? The one that points to the best destination, or the one that warns you that some paths should never be taken at all?